Good morning, everyone. This is Russell Rucker, and I'm here for another constitutional talk. Today, I'd like to talk for a minute about the penman of our Constitution, about Gouverneur Morris. He had a brilliant long career in government. He signed the Articles of Confederation. He worked on them in the Continental Congress. There were a number of things he thought of that we might think are a little strange today. For instance, he thought that only landowners should be allowed to vote, that Western states should be admitted, but should be admitted with less representation, because his fear was that the Eastern states would be run over eventually by the Western states. He referred to them as backwoodsmen. And some of the other founders argued against him, stating that their sons and daughters would be heading west in waves, and that these were all our citizens. So he wanted the slaves to be counted in whole numbers. In other words, he didn't want a 3/5 clause. He cited that men can't be both property and men. After the Constitutional Convention was held, he replaced Jefferson as a diplomat in France, and he was there on hand during the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. And he kept a journal of sorts. And so from his diary, we were able to find a lot of information that we know today about what happened in France during the French Revolution, is because he was there. He was a very attractive man. And he was a womanizer. And he was cheating all the time with women all over the place. In 1780, he was involved in a carriage accident where, at least it's believed, that he must have been fleeing from a husband of some woman he was, having relations with. And he tried to get on the carriage as fast as he could, and he slipped, and his leg went through the spoke of the wheel, and he broke it up, and he had to have his leg amputated. During the Reign of Terror, he actually took off his leg and was hitting them, fending off an attack. That's kind of the colorful aspect of Gouverneur Morris. His mother was a loyalist. And that's how many things were in the Republic. There were families that were divided. For instance, Temple Franklin, the grandson that Franklin tried to install as a secretary during the convention, and earlier in the Continental Congress, he was also a loyalist, which is why he was never approved, because the other representatives in Pennsylvania knew this and didn't want him. They didn't trust him. But Gouverneur Morris's mother was a loyalist, and she turned over her estate in New York to the Redcoats to use. And it's because of this that he was removed from the provincial Congress at the time, because his land was in occupied territory by the British. And so he was unable to serve. And this is one of the reasons he was in Pennsylvania and given the job later as a delegate for Pennsylvania at the Constitutional Convention. As I mentioned, he was a very good-looking man, and his body was used as a double by sculptors for George Washington. So when you see a bust of George Washington, you have a body of Gouverneur Morris there. Now, in the convention, he sat on the Committee of Style and Arrangement. He was the chair of that committee, and he also was on the committee of postponed matters. He even cast a tie-breaking vote to keep George Washington as commander-in-chief in the field. Now, George Washington was trying to execute the war. It was his job to enforce the Declaration of Independence. In other words, it was his job to win the war. But the war wasn't going so well. So there was a move to replace George Washington as the commander-in-chief, and Gouverneur Morris had none of it. And he stood by Washington, and he cast a tie-breaking vote to keep him. And in so doing, it was this placement as the commander-in-chief that gave him the presidency of the Constitutional Convention, and more than likely wound up elevating him to President of the United States as the father of our country. So everything kind of lays onto itself. But he's known as the penman of the Constitution, and one of the big things he wrote up was the preamble, and I will read it to you here. And way back when I first started this channel, we did discuss the preamble, but in talking about Gouverneur Morris, I think it's a good idea to repeat it. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Now, a more perfect union was better than what we had under the Articles of Confederation. That's what these words mean. Establish justice, and he lists the things that we are trying to do with the new Constitution. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for a common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Those are his words, and part of the reason why he's called the penman of the Constitution. He did the Committee of Arrangement and Style did turn what the delegates had wanted into a finished document. So much of the language that's in the Constitution is his and the committee's. Gouverneur Morris in our painting is up here. He's in the second panel on the upper far right. He's a very important founder, a very colorful founder. It's interesting that he had to live with that wooden peg his whole life on his leg from 1780 forward. So when he was in the Continental Congress, he was not in that situation. Just thought you'd like to know a little bit more about Gouverneur Morris, along with some of our other founders, some of the language and the placement, even if, as you look through the Constitution, one of the things that I think would be beneficial to people is look at the capitalization of the words. It's written in the old language, but when you look at what's capitalized, the choice that committee made in capitalizing this word or that word gives you a real understanding of what they thought was really important in the document. It's just one more way of looking at it. And it's honestly something I hadn't even thought of until I was rewriting and relooking at it for the republication of my first book, Textualism and Originalism in Our Constitutional Republic, which is what I read from here on Constitutional Talks. Please subscribe to my channel. It helps me a lot. It helps me assure that you can still see my video every week, that you're notified. And it helps me with the numbers. This is a free service to you, and I hope that you'll continue to watch me here on Constitutional Talks, and we'll catch you next time. for the next constitutional talk. These men back here, they work tirelessly for you and for your great-grandchildren. They work so that we had good government, that we had liberty and freedoms guaranteed, and that we have a better country because of these men here. These men are the signers of the Constitution. We'll catch you next time on the next Constitutional Talk. You have a good day now. Bye.